Years ago, I was a contestant on Wheel of Fortune, living out my dream of solving puzzles, meeting Pat and Vanna, and yes, even winning some money. But more importantly than all of that were the lessons I walked away with, which forever changed the trajectory of my professional life. And I'm going to share those three lessons with you today. Number one is, you know what? Sometimes failure is exactly what you need. Now, millions of people watched me on Wheel of Fortune, but what none of them realize is that I actually failed to get on the show the first time that I tried out. And I was devastated. But I had a choice. Either I could just give up and not try again, or I could learn from it and, well, give it another shot. Obviously, I did give it another shot, and I feel as though that failure actually set me up more for success on the show than if I would have just nailed it the first time. And that is the beauty of failure, especially in your professional life. It can teach you, it can help you grow, and sometimes it can just make you realize that is not even what you wanted in the first place. When I lived in Chicago, I was one of two candidates up for a very well paying position at a local hospital. And I had already in my mind gotten the position, and I had already planned out my move from my apartment with my three roommates to a place all by myself. So excited about it. Well, I didn't get the position, and I felt like a failure. And then I had to actually go back and say, all right, well, I'm exactly where I started, and I have to stay here and live with these three roommates. Well, what I didn't know is that in a few months, there was going to be a new neighbor upstairs, and that new neighbor would eventually become my husband. I needed that failure at that time because there was something bigger for me in my life because of that failure. Now, I want you to think about your professional career progression and think about the failures that have happened. And I'm going to use failures loosely because I don't truly believe that a failure is a failure unless that just means you give up and curl into a ball and never try again. But I want you to think about your failures and think about what eventually became of them. Did you learn? Did you pivot? Did you grow? I think that's the beauty of failures. If you do not get that job that you wanted so badly, is there a reason? Was there a better opportunity that you didn't even know existed and you wouldn't have known if you had gotten the position? If you didn't get the promotion, was there something more that you could learn? Was there a mentor that you could find? Was there somebody you could shadow with? What areas did you need to grow in? And let's say you asked for a raise and didn't get it. Maybe that was the tipping point for you to say, hey, this company doesn't value me. And you're like, hey, I deserve better. Failure always has something to teach us. Those moments may be exactly what you need at that time. Number two is it is pointless to focus on what isn't in your control. There are a million people who apply to be on Wheel of Fortune each and every year, and only around 600 make it on to the show. I could have focused on all of those other people, but that was going to do me no good. But how often do you focus on what is not in your control in your professional life? Well, let's say you go for an interview and you're stressed about the other candidates that you don't even know, but you're concerned about the skills that they might have, the experience they may have, the years that they might have behind them. That does you no good. In fact, it just detracts from what you should be focusing on, all the things in your control. Writing a resume, creating connections, researching the company, learning about the industry. When you take the focus away from all of those things, you are simply wasting your time and energy and leaving yourself in a much worse off mental state. When you have those things that are in your control, you're going to feel a sense of empowerment and a sense of strength. And number three is sometimes your personality matters more than your skill set. When I was auditioning for Wheel of Fortune, I realized that every single person in that audition room was as good at word games as I was. Really, the only distinguishing feature between most of us was our personalities. And so much of the time when we are in the job search process, we feel as though we have to temper our personalities to fit into a mold, to answer questions the correct way, to be a certain person so that we will be hired. But your personality can actually make or break whether or not you get a position. When I worked in HR, there were a number of times where our decision between two or three candidates came down to a personality match. One person might have matched 90% of the skill set, but just wasn't a match personality wise, while somebody else might have matched at 80% skill wise, but we really felt as though they would gel with the department. That was an easy decision. We would go with the person who we felt as though was the best fit for the department, not just on the skill level, but also on the personality level. And that's why it's so important to show up as your true, authentic self. Of course, be professional and be respectful, but at the end of the day, you have to let yourself shine through. All right, so really quick, I know that was a short one, but those are my 3 career professional life lessons that I learned from being on a game show. And if you would like to learn how to incorporate a bit more storytelling into your job search process, make sure to check out my video here.